Good afternoon, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to our Africa Day celebrations. This year being, the theme of this year being the year of nutrition, something extremely appropriate for the times in which we find ourselves. These are the best of times and the worst of times, as everybody has been experiencing over the last little while. We've just overcome the lockdowns and pandemic scares. We continue to live with the pandemic, of course, but at the same time, so much has happened in our country and worldwide that leaves us with many, many pauses. So it is my great honor to be a part of this conversation today, where we can grapple with some of the things that are meaningful to us both here in South Africa, and in Africa and in the rest of the world. A really very warm welcome to all of you into our space and into our forum. And thank you so much for being a part of this afternoon with us. I begin the conversation today with a piece of poetry from Nigeria by a teenager called Victory Akasha, who's 19 years old. And the poem is entitled Zero Hunger. Once upon a generation, upon families of distinct descents in a nation, famished to behold, with less than nothing to eat, whose children starved with bellies ruptured by hunger and bloated out by the pangs of emptiness, towards fainting through deficiency. Is this the land that flows with milk and honey, or the exchanger of natural resources for money? An ironical, unspoken grief with deafening silence, in sight of the hungry who weep upon a green land, but must be redeemed from the cusp of degradation and malnutrition, of stunting, of wasting, and overweight. The bedrock of a child's survival is good nutrition, strengthened by the arms of sustainable agriculture, to thrive from dawn to dusk with sumptuous delicacy that gives a yummy taste bud of ecstasy. If the pangs of starvation become oceans of tears, the ability of youngsters gets compromised for years. Every child deserves solace in a standard living, as the nitty-gritty in quest for a life worth living. Children, as the hope for years to come, need to survive in spite of a land as a giant whale, by having access to adequate and balanced food, so that their future may not disappear. So what Akasha brings into our conversation is the mandate that has sat with us for a very long time, is that we want zero hunger. We want for everybody to have their basic needs fulfilled, and particularly for our children. I love the words that she uses. The bedrock of a child's survival is good nutrition. And I think that that is really what begins our conversation today. So if the bedrock of a child's survival is good nutrition, then it stands to reason that without a belly filled, without sufficient nutrition and the right kind of nutrition, one cannot expect learning to happen. It is therefore a Maslow before Bloom world. And as the pandemic hit us, we were sensitized to the inequalities that still continue to face us. And one of the mandates of education has been not just education, of schools at least, have been not just education, but nutrition, health, and overall well-being of our children. So we begin the conversation with this very, very insightful piece of poetry from a 19-year-old. And we take it forward into the conversation, today with two very special guest speakers. And we also have an extremely wonderful person in the form of Aziza, who joins us today, and we'll introduce her in a little while. But from my side, I'm Professor Katia Sim. I am at the University of Johannesburg, and together with Kagiso Trust, we run the Cloud Dialogue this afternoon in celebration of Africa Day within the theme, the Year of Nutrition. It gives me great pleasure and it warms my heart to introduce, as I said, three people, but we'll start off with Miss Veinola Makan. And Veinola, I could give your glorified biography and wow people with the many things that you have achieved and where you find yourself. But I'm going to be very simple and leave you to do the glory on your behalf and say these words. I met Veinola in an online space, in a community of practice, where we were grappling with this issue of education for sustainable livelihoods. And through that conversation, I became intricately astute to Veinola's work in the community and the amazing kind of way in which she has found her passion in developing communities, but at the same time, working with women in particular. And so I hand over to you, Veinola, so that you can introduce yourself as well in the way you see best that you would like to share with the audience, but also in the conversation that you're going to share with us today. So over to you, Veinola. I'll stop sharing so that you can then share your screen.
Thank you very much, Kat, and a great thank you for the opportunity. There are millions of people that could have been here today. It's such a pleasure, and Aziza's also waving there. She will have a chance to introduce herself later, my fellow guest speaker. It's really an honor to speak on Africa Day, where it's such an important topic, food security. So you can see me as a social justice and a food justice and an environmental justice activist. And I'm also have a passion for women's liberation. So I do see myself as a feminist. I will speak from those three vantage points. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can, Veinola.
Yeah.
Thank you. We
Wonderful.
can see.
Wonderful. Yeah. So yeah, the presentation today at the Faculty of Education of University of Johannesburg. I haven't been there myself, so I'm very excited to have my first contact. And it's the next time it will definitely be person-to-person contact. And I'm also very honored um, to be paneling with Professor Michael Rudolph. I've listened to a video of his where he spoke about the work that he does, and I feel really privileged to be sharing with him as well the panel. So the title of the presentation is "Food for All, Food Forever." And really, when I spoke with Kat about this, we were clear that this is not going to be just a regurgitation of all the academic papers that has been written on food security. Food security for me is going to the soul of our dignity. It's going to the core of women's work, our life work. It's to bear children and to make sure that we give them adequate development. And nutrition for me is core to that, to any human being's dignity. It is not just about adding food in their bodies, but it is really creating that basis on which we can go out and play, where we can go out and work, where we can go out and build relationships that is important for our own survival. Um, and so that's a photo of Aziza. Aziza is one of the women that I work with. She's from Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement, which I work a lot with. We're doing co-creation of research with communities. And my assertion today is that if we want to address food security and effective and proper nutrition, that we need to have the women's voices in when we plan, when we make policies, when we make decisions about food and nutrition. There are some of the women that are also sharing the food kitchen with us. She will tell the story later. Um, what impacts on food security and nutrition is the whole of the global interaction, the global political systems, the economic systems, as we know, our own national government, our policies, and our policy on food security. And then, of course, how the local government, our local NGOs, community organizations, women's organizations, how we then make sure that the use of the food actually go where it's supposed to be and everyone can have a meal to eat. That is the ideal. So we are discussing this in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, the IMF World Bank policies, our constitutional obligation, which says that everyone has the right to food, everyone has the right to water, and of course our own food systems and policy. Now, I'm going to leave a lot of that for Professor Michael, and I'm going to get into the more practical and sort of the work with the women that we've been doing. Um, Food, access to food, water, and social security goes together. Also, energy, also land. So, food, as I said, is core to our right to dignity and our dignity as human beings. So we cannot address food in isolation of all these other important things, because if you plant food in your garden, you do need land and you do need water and you need good energy, because if it only rains and there's no sun, then there will also be an impact. So, what is at the heart of food security? The academics tell us that it's food availability is core, our access to food, and then what impacts mostly on our topic for today is the utilization. Now, utilization is so important because even if there's food available, which there is, we know that there is enough food for all people in the world. The problem is distribution of that food, access to that food, who can get the food and who can get the best food. But even if the food come in our houses or it comes into the shop and we have money to buy for it, um, um, and it comes in front of us, there is still certain actions, certain skill that we need to have to make sure that the use of that food comes in a balanced diet. It comes with an understanding of the nutrition and with an understanding of how best development of a child and adult work. So the use of food is really important, because there are many people who have access to food that do not have the education, and that's why it's so important for the University of Johannesburg education faculty to take this up, because it is going to be our educational work that is going to break this ground for us really make a breakthrough in nutrition for all. So what is our reality? In Africa, 250 million undernourished people were food insecure after COVID-19. South Africa has about 13.8 million, which was 2011 stats. So now it's, of course, more than 15 million already. Individuals that experience inadequate access to food. During COVID-19, we were hard hit and it reversed some of the gains made because food security is also one of the SDG goals, where everybody in the world says that this is a priority. And so at least food security and nutrition is on the agenda. But to get it from the agenda into action is our real challenge today. Undernutrition is also an underlying cause of half of the child deaths. Now that says a lot because it means that the problem in Africa, which is most hardest hit by this problem, is really dire. And so it's incumbent on all of us to have a breakthrough in this problem. So 15% of children born in South Africa are born with low weight. The percentage of households that have limited access to food decreased from 23 to 20%. But now after COVID, of course, it has increased again. At schools, they struggle to feed children in rural areas as the subsidies that government give them and the sponsors that they give them is just not enough. We have we have come at a school in Klaver, which is one of the poor communities in the Western Cape. They said that they have to raise money every month to feed the children because after they feed children, there are still children that that they have to say no, we don't have for you, and that is really a problem. So teachers are sitting with these problems as well. A Klaver is a community where recently a, a young boy of 13-year-old has been killed um, by a man, and him and his friend went to pick mangoes, and the mangoes fell. They didn't even eat it, and the guy came after them with a bucky, and he bumped the one child, and he took him home, and he murdered him and chopped him up in pieces, and the pieces was later found in a drain. Now that is the level of dignity. All that this child wanted was to eat a mango, and we can really see to what length children has to go, even losing your life in order to go get food when there is no access. And so that is something that can never be repeated, and that is why this topic is so important today. Small farmers um, are the people that more and more put bread on the table, because we find that the industrial commercial agriculture is not effective. The prices are going up. It is very difficult to put food on the table. Um, the household budget has been shrunk because there's been many job losses now. There's a lot of poverty. There isn't access to land, and so people start farming in their backyards. They start farming everywhere that they can. Every at school and so on. And so there is a need to empower our small scale farmers with utensils, with implements, with land access, with water, and so on. There's also poor organization among these farmers, because if they are better organized, then they can have more leverage and put pressure on government, which is still very largely focused on commercial farming. Attempts to reallocate policy making decisions closer to local areas is hampered by a lack of capacity and inadequate resources. So what is the goal? The goal is that we want to ensure that everyone has a plate of food to eat, and that everyone work together so that our children are not starving, and we can get away from our reality that we had for the past many years. And I think one to summarize our reality in South Africa is that um, uh, there is still hunger in South Africa even after we have a democratic government, because there are many factors, economic factors, political factors, access factors, um, gender and racial and class issues that filter in on really making sure that everybody gets. I'm going to let Professor talk about malnutrition and undernutrition, um, because there is really one of the things is that there's chronic undernutrition or stunting among our children. And the, this is something that the whole world is dealing with. Now, why education is so important is that parents who do not have an understanding of what the importance of nutrients are for children to have a balanced meal will also impact the child negatively, and not only physically, the physical growth, but also the cognitive growth, the achievement in school, and also the ability to learn social skills and grow up as a into his or her full potential as a human being. So I've already spoke about all the barriers, some of the barriers. There's environmental issues that come to play, um, um, exploitation of women in food kitchens. Women has been the one, as Aziza will tell us just now, that had to jump in when we were all under lockdown, and everybody was a lot of people were going to starve from hunger, and she will tell us that it was the women who took the leadership and have many people's lives saved, because there were food kitchens, there were soup kitchens, and some of the government resources was embroiled in corruption, where some of the local government officials, stole the food for themselves. So a lot of the food that was given by government did not reach people. And so the women sometimes they have to take from their own social grants, from their own budgets, small and meager as it is, to subsidize other. And that is really the social currency and the gold that we have in South Africa. And in the end, it will be the women who make sure that everybody is fed, because they have the heart, they have the passion, and the burden of food security rests on women, because we are the people that bring children in the world, and the women are in the forefront of feeding the children. So on the other side of nutrition is also malnutrition. So a lot of teenagers and adult women and men also suffer from obesity. And so it's not just the lack of food, it's also sometimes having too much or not knowing which food to put in our bodies. And so this is becoming a big issue. I think with the passivity during COVID-19, I think all of us has put on weight in some sense, or it was easier um, to balance our weight because of the passivity that set in as a result of being under lockdown and not being able to walk and be about and exercise enough. Even the gyms were closed. So, yeah, prevalence of overweight and obesity is increasing in children younger than 5 years globally, and is an important contributor to diabetes and other chronic diseases in adulthood. So if we don't catch it now under 5 years, it is going to impact people later on in adulthood. So impact of malnutrition is that girls who grow up stunted are more likely to suffer complications during childbirth. Uh, to break the intergenerational cycle of undernutrition does also require good obstetric care to facilitate the birth of a larger baby born to a mother who may have been stunted herself, but then had good nutrition pre-pregnancy and during pregnancy, resulting in the development of a larger infant in the womb. So if we catch the problem earlier enough, it can still be dealt with. Um, I want to make a point of food and intersectionality, which I have already started to talk about, that food is linked to health, to our age, to our gender, our rural or urban location, class and race, disability, being a migrant, food literate parenting, employed or secure income, our lifestyle, climate change, and our geographic location, where we stay, and all these environmental and identity questions has a bearing on food. And that is why we all need education, and we all need to understand this, because none of us are experts on these things. Some people are experts on rural development. Some people are experts on migration. Some people are experts on climate change, but we all need to take cognizance of all of those things, and that therefore we all need to be in the school, back in the school, learning these things. So the stakeholders cannot just be government policymakers. It has to be the critical agents of change has to be the small farmers, parents, rural and poor women, fisher folk, indigenous communities, migrant women, young women and the girl child, pregnant women, and school and education teachers, lecturers. Everyone has to be on deck. And so coming to intervention strategies, we need to make sure that there's a promotion of optimum breastfeeding, because at least when the mom has had a healthy diet, she can have good breastfeeding, and that's important for the child. Dietary supplementation, micronutrient supplementation. There's a need for government intervention strategies. The food systems are too fragmented, and therefore it needs to be um, harmonized. The industrial, commercial farming and the small scale farming are not talking enough to each other. Uh, the women are on the other side trying to make ends meet, and there isn't the synchronization and synthesis of all those policies. And that is why, even with all the resources that is put in, the, the food doesn't reach the people that it needs to. Um, so I'm going to talk about, yeah, some of the community interventions. We need more creative ways of consumer education, because it's in our lifestyle, in our consumerism, what we consume, what we buy, that we can also have good nutrition. We need to invest in some creative aspects, some such as community food festivals and community competition. How can we get the community involved and say, come, bring your healthy vegetables, bring your food, and come, let's make beautiful competitions, and then the food will be shared to everybody who do not have food on that day. Home and backyard gardening training, get access to land for community collective gardening, household visits and mall exhibitions, and have conversations where we can do tasting of the food on display. And then the question is, the food produced fairly and in a healthy way? We as consumers, we should not just buy because it's got a nice color or it's got a nice package, but we need to have ethical understanding also. Is the food produced it, fair? Is exploitation involved in the labor of that food, and so on? And then we will all slowly going to make a contribution to building a new and bigger nutritional nutrition provision culture. Some actions to take is intergenerational collaboration, training on GMOs, community agriculture as part of aftercare program for children, support with food implements, water access sharing between commercial and small-scale farms, plan inclusively ahead for feeding strategy during crisis, pandemics, and natural disasters. We need to build stronger and effective value chains. We need to review the food policy and be inclusive so that everybody participate in the new food policy. We need to promote trade among African countries so that we are not so dependent on external shocks. If there's a war there, then our food system is going haywire. We need all hands on deck. We need representation of communities in decision making, popular education with parents and women, learning festivals. You know, the role of the media and spreading the message cannot be over understated. Women needs to be foreground on the nutrition decision making theme. So yeah, there's a whole range of things that we can do. We need street kitchens. In that way, we're going to make sure that no child is falling through the cracks. It needs to be stocked up and set up, supported by businesses, by government. And so I think that this problem is important for us, that we cannot look at only having jobs, because even if we have jobs and we have houses, and all those things that we said in the Freedom Charter, if we cannot feed our children, because our children have entrusted their lives in our hands, and they are not by the means to feed themselves and to think which of the food is the best. They're just going to go for the one with the nicest color, and they're going to completely trust in anybody that give them food with a good heart. And so that is why we need to have the skills and the understanding of what nutrition is best for children and when and how to feed them properly. And I think then we will also have a better country and a better Africa. Thank you. I will now give over to Aziza to share a bit about their food kitchens, about how they have been saving lives during COVID-19. Thank you. Yeah, Aziza, you must open your mute, please, eh?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm thankful to be here today with all the African nutrition. My name is Bahati Aziza Idolwa. I'm the chairperson of Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement. I'm citizen from Congo, DRC, living in South Africa. If everyone knows where DRC, I'm one of them. I joined the organization Ubuntu. It's where I belong, it's my home. And I like to work with people. And since we joined the organization, it was so tough for us because we do volunteering. But for many years we did, and we make it today to save people's life. What I can say shortly for Ubuntu, we work with the children, we work with the elderly, we work with the farmer workers, we help a lot for the children, we do garden, and we did a lot for our community where we live. I want to say shortly about the lockdown. Since we go through to lockdown, it was so tough for everyone. Which one, no one know where we are going for and where we are coming from. Lockdown, it was a disaster, things which no one know if one day we can be the way we are. We can sit without a mask sometime, but it's not allowed yet. I say thank you for God to make it for all of us in all world, because it was not only for South Africa, it's all world suffered for this COVID. And it was a big challenge to our life, where the children, they was locked up for school, they were sitting at home, no hope if you can eat or whatever. Really, it was so tough. Mother, father, we can just look each other, we don't know where to go. And Ubuntu was there for everyone. Ubuntu women, we did stand and say, enough is enough. We must stand for our people, and we must save our community. People that was locked in, Ubuntu women was outside just to care about the other. We can wear our mask properly, we go to serve people food. It was tough for us because ourselves, at the time we was coming out to do that, we was scared. Maybe we can be affected for the disease or what happened. May God was there for us because we was helping the need. And that one, I would say thank you for our organization, and thank you for those small business. They was empower us, they give some things to put on the table for other people. We was helped by human, black human on whining. They was helping us too. Government was assisting us too. Until today, we still make it because of that, and we say thank you. Really, it was so tough and tough and tough. For now, on this lockdown finish until today, we still have a 20 kitchen, which one Ubuntu still serve food. Each day we must feed 2,000 people a day. Until today, we still do it. because it's too terrible for seeing how people are suffering, how children are walking hungry, how women, men, elderly, they are walking without every food. It's very tough, and we was there for them. What I can say about this Nutrition Africa today, it can learn more African to know what to do tomorrow. It can learn more African to know we have a land. We have everything, which one we can fight this calamity. It's not only South Africa, it's everywhere we have a land. That is the first issue, which one people can stand on it. Because people, they have land, they can cultivate. You can cultivate on the backyard. You can do some things to let people to survive. Because malnutrition is a very, very big disease, which no one know how malnutrition works. I think I know some of element of malnutrition. If you don't eat well, you must be affected. And the kwashiorkor can appear on your life without knowing, be old or child. Malnutrition is for everyone who don't eat well properly. I can just explain a little bit about concerning my country, Congo DRC. Congo DRC, everyone know how to make a farm because they have access of land. Everyone in Congo DRC. But what a disaster today, Congo DRC is on the top 3 kwashiorkor country in the whole world, top 3 for anger. It's very shame and ridicule to us, Congolese. Really. Because the kwashiorkor is in Congo for malnutrition, it's worse than all over. A big country like a DRC. It's very, very painful. Very painful. It's to African leaders to watch and assist what is going on. Because we have a farmer, we can't cultivate on our own farm. Because all the rebels, they go and they sit all the corner of the backyard, all the bushes is full of rebels. Women, you can go inside of farm, they rape you. Even men, children, you go into your farm, they can rape you and they kill you in Congo today. It's why it's the anger. And that anger is a disaster. It's a very disaster. What I can say for South Africa, you still have a land to learn, to let people to cultivate it. You still have a land. And it's not rebel in South Africa. You can give people permission to make a farmers and they do whatever they can do to save their life and to save other country life too. Not to be a disaster country like DRC. DRC is in a big calamity because people, they are not free on their own land. You can't go to your farm. You can't eat. You can stay there and your child start developing. You was a brown, you become light. You have a crook's hair and you become with a light hair. You have a coloring body, you become a white.
Yeah, but yeah, Aziza, just one more minute, wrapping.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, just wrapping up for time now, please.
Yes, yeah. It's why I say really nutrition is a big, big, big challenge, which one we have for all world. And we must stand to know how. It's not to say I eat today banana, I eat what. People are eating very bad. It's why malnutrition is all over. You can't give your child a bread and a dry chips and give a cup of drinker pop and you say it's a supper for the child. That is not a life. That is to develop other diseases for the future for those children. It's why mother, everyone must stand together to save the life the way we save it, really. As Ubuntu, we do try our best. And I know we still continue to do it. And by the power of God and the power of all they are listening, I think we can make one. It's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Aziza. That was just such an insightful voice from the ground, somebody who has been at the coalface of everything that is happening in our communities and the work that you're doing through Ubuntu Kitchens. And maybe the most commendable being that you guys have taken the matter into your own hands and said, no child shall go hungry, and that we together as women, we're going to find solutions to this issue. Venola, your insightful perspective in terms of where we stand as a country, but also the impact of intersectionality and all the multiple factors that affect the economy. In the chat space, we have a number of questions that people have put into the chat space. And I think Professor Sifoto from the Faculty of Education asks the question, what is the meaning of food security amidst heavy commercialization of foods where people are willing to kill instead of sharing for the well-being of all? In other words, have we become so selfish that all we're concerned about is our own pockets and our own bottom lines, where we are not taking into account overall well-being? Any response quickly from your side, Venola, to that particular question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think we can get lost in the definitions and the words. Like there's also someone who work in this field of agriculture, Karen Kleinboy. She's actually even problematizing this use of all these beautiful concepts, sustainability. You know, we have the right food security, we have the right language for it, but then the question is, why are people still hungry? And so and I think I want to reassert that it's in the poor articulation between all these food systems, the economic system, the community system, the political system, the social organs not working together, and the political will to make sure that those who need to be fed are fed. But it is also a way that we look at communities, the people that are most dismissed in communities. They are the ones that were shining and had shown leadership, as Aziza had just displayed for us. And so food security is not just the stuff that we put in our bodies to make sure that we are not hungry, but it's quality food and safe food. I think that's why the topic is not food security today, but nutrition, because it is doing the right food on the right time and in the right place for everyone, and not just for everyone today, but for everyone tomorrow. And so it is a new value system, a new approach to life, a new lifestyle, and the new orientation and the worldview that we need to conquer. What what if we are 20 million people in South Africa who have enough food in our homes, who can go to work and feel that we have had a proper breakfast and there's supper to come home to? What if we take another person that do not have that? Already more people will be eating, because are we going to wait for government who are wasting 6 billion a year on corruption and on effective governance? Are we going to wait for that, whereas the community on the ground are starting to subsidize each other already? So you will ask me, so but it's not our responsibility. Well, if the children are not eating, it is the women's responsibility, and they take full responsibility. But we need to support that, and we need that to become the center stage model, instead of waiting for a trickle down economy or a trickle down economic system that has not been designed with the input and with the interest and the needs of those who are hungry, of those who suffer from malnutrition.
I think you and Aziza make exactly the same point, that waiting for somebody else to do something and not taking ownership of the problem ourselves is really maybe where the problem lies and where the solution actually resides. I think one of your slides spoke to the idea of a food literate parents, but I was thinking more along the lines of a food literate society, and what are the ways in which we can engage with that. But thank you so much, Aziza and Vinola. We will have more time for engagement in our breakaway rooms, but it's time for me to introduce Professor Michael Rudolph. Michael has got an amazing CV with so much of achievements along the way, but there's just one or two things that I'll quickly put into the space. Currently, he's managing something called the Center for Ecological Intelligence at the University of Johannesburg. And it is an initiative that is an integrated program that promotes urban agriculture, ecological health, particularly in urban, peri-urban, and rural settings. And through appropriate, innovative, and practical training and improved food security, greater job creation, economic opportunities, and healthier villages, eco-villages, and environments linked to sustainable climate, smart agricultural practice, food security, nutrition, and healthy lifestyles. So I've just sort of read over a lot of adjectives there. That is just an extract from his amazing CV. Professor Emeritus, retired from University of Witwatersrand, and who now join us as Director for the Center of Ecological Intelligence. A warm welcome to you, Michael, and we look forward to our engagement with you. And again, thank you so much for making the time for us along your travels. I know you are in your vehicle at the moment, and we so appreciate your presence in our space today. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Prof. Kat, and good afternoon, colleagues. I thank you, Vinola, for uploading. So as Prof. Yassim said, I'm from the Center for Ecological Intelligence at UJ, and I'm pleased to say that although UJ does not have a faculty of or a school of agriculture, that we are really literally and figuratively planting the seeds of promoting innovative food systems, agriculture, and nutrition at the university. I agree fully. I could spend the whole session on addressing the many points, many valid points that Vinola raised, and Bahati, and I will actually mention some of them. I just wanted to say that in our approach, we constantly referring to food and nutrition security. Until recently, it was mainly food security, but I agree completely that the nutritional aspect should become a high priority. As my many colleagues know, as I've said it a number of times, if I were appointed as the Minister or economics or education, I would put a huge amount of our budget into nutrition. It's one of the most neglected areas, and very importantly, that there is substantial evidence that the return on investment in nutrition is 10 times greater than any other investment in the health sector. So obviously we need doctors, nurses, hospitals, clinics, medicines, etc. But again, the return on investment on nutrition is so much greater because of areas. And Vinola's very briefly listed stunting, which is a huge factor in and a major problem in South Africa. It's not only the physical stunting, it's the cognitive stunting, and there is evidence that stunting, physical and cognitive stunting, can lead to even economic stunting, and that makes obvious sense, because if you are stunted from a young age, how can you become the entrepreneurs and the business people and the professionals and the leaders of our community. So, sorry, Viola, if you could just go back to the a couple of the quotes that I had. I just felt that, you know, sometimes the systems in which we are dealing, they are complex, and they are linked to linked to different sectors and different disciplines. And sometimes we do need to go back to the basics and to ensure that we not only depend on sophisticated research. And so to start really with the beginning, you know, that God created man and he put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate and maintain it. And that ultimately was the beginning of sustainability and development. And that not all food secure diets are sustainable, but all sustainable diets can lead to food security. An interesting quote from Egyptian hieroglyphics said that 1/4 of what one eats keeps you alive, and the other 3/4 keeps the doctor alive. And interesting enough, there's a Chinese tradition that doctors are only paid, or health workers are paid to keep people healthy and not treat them when they are sick. We're all aware that food is the best medicine, and that we need to sort of be constantly aware of that. And there's great evidence for that. Today, we are facing not only the COVID and the HIV and the TB, but we're dealing with chronic diseases such as hypertension and diabetes and all those chronic illnesses, which are lifestyle diseases and mostly due to poor nutrition, often not out of choice, but through poverty and lack of good diet. And we are we are what we eat, and that from a health profession, the agenda, medical and could we go to the next slide, please? So Viola referred also to the Sustainable Development Goals, and this particular slide, we could spend the rest of the afternoon and tomorrow going through the details and the linkages between the Sustainable Development Goals and food security. But I'm going to merely use this slide to illustrate the complexity and the cluster, the importance of understanding how these different Sustainable Development Goals are clustered around the various aspects that are so important to address, whether it be regional, national, at the household, and at the individual level. And then a very important area, which is highlighted in yellow, is that so many food systems, food kitchens, projects are implemented and initiated. And when you ask people, well, you know, what is the impact? The answer is often with some unsurety about the ultimate impact that it has. And so our challenge is to find the appropriate indices, and we are engaging on measuring the social, economic, and environmental impacts on the work. So it is an intersectoral approach, and very importantly, a multi and a cross-sectional approach to deal with these complex issues that have been raised this afternoon and of which we are all aware. Vinella, could I go to the next slide, please? So this again is just showing the food security pathways in terms of agricultural production, physical and economic aspects, as well as dealing with poverty, and then the important issues of quality, safety, and the quality, and of course the impact that it has on health. I think I also want to emphasize the short and long-term aspects, that currently there are millions of people who are literally going to bed hungry, do not have enough food, and therefore we do need to address the short term. But simultaneously, we cannot rely on food kitchens and food parcels to address the bigger question. We need to find other models. And I'm currently driving back with 4 of my colleagues from one of our living laboratories. Although our center is located in Johannesburg at the University of Johannesburg, we have got a number of living laboratories of growing food, of promoting dietary diversity, of educating local communities in understanding how to grow the food, how to prepare the food, how to process the food, and how to utilize the food in an effective way, including utilizing waste food, which is such a huge area, loss of food or food wastage through, for example, biodigesters, which then convert the food waste into methane gas or liquid fertilizer or bioslurry or other aspects. And so there is a circularity in terms of addressing food and nutrition security. Could I go to the next slide, please, Vinella? So in terms of the sustainability development goals, I'm not going to go through each one, but because this this webinar is being recorded, everybody has got access to this presentation. But what I did want to point out that each one of the
Oh, golly, it seems to be that we are losing you, Michael. I think connectivity might be a little bit of an issue on your side.
Goal, or less extent. Sorry, I missed that.
I think connectivity might be a bit of a problem on your side. We lost
you
there
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. We can hear you
now?
now. We can hear you now. Vinola
Okay.
and Aliza, if you put your camera on, it might help. Off, it might help, Michael. Go ahead, Michael. We can hear you.
Okay, can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the key issue is that I wanted to make with these next couple of slides is that we can demonstrate, you know, often people say I'm dealing with goal 1, 3, 5, and 7. But the point I wanted to make is that each one of those goals can be quite directly, or in some cases indirectly, linked to food security and of course nutrition. This morning we had an interesting example of our of Sustainable Development Goal number 17, which is about partnerships. And so we had the mining industry, we had corporates there, we had the university there, we had a non-profit organization there, and we had the community, each one contributing in their own particular way towards a common goal and contributing in different ways in truly a partnership approach. Could we go to the next slide, please? And then after that, please just go past that. So the challenges in terms of developing a food system is that we need to look at the entire picture. One of the points that was emphasized by my colleague Manyasha this morning was the importance of soil. And today, this is such a critical issue. We come to seedling security, water security, energy security, climate security, etc., etc. Each one of those are absolutely essential to deal with. And sometimes we say, well, what's politics got to do with food security? But it has everything to do with food security because government policy at national, provincial and local levels, all within institutions, and the politics around that, the allocation of funding, the implementation of that is absolutely critical. But what I want to now come to is to demonstrate some of the projects that we've got on the ground that is actually dealing with these issues. So if I can go to the next slide, please, Wainola.
This one?
So this particular slide is showing our food garden in the Eastern Cape schools. It's not only about growing the produce, a wide range of produce, promoting dietary diversity, but it's involving the school learners directly, and again, not as laborers, that they understand the importance of soil, they understand the importance of fertilization, of pest management, of the importance of not using highly poisonous insecticides and pesticides. And so we believe that the school programs which promoting food gardens, and that it becomes part of the an outdoor classroom. And so we've got examples of introducing various aspects of food into the classroom curriculum. So it's not an additional subject, but whether it be in maths or biology or in English or in art, all of this could be incorporated into the food program at schools. And I feel that this is a very important area of promoting good nutrition. I would like to also mention that we are about to embark on a program with early childhood development centers, because we believe that if you can start making young kids at 3 or 4 years old of growing plants of water constantly essential for their future understanding and appreciation, not only of agriculture and nutrition, but of life. Next slide, please. So this is part of the school program in the Eastern Cape. I'm pleased to say that we are also working with the Nelson Mandela Museum, promoting human rights gardens, and very importantly, promoting eco and agro-tourism. People are interested in indigenous knowledge systems. People are interested in organic growing. And I also applying organic growing for hundreds of years, but it has to be rebooted and re-energized. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. So this is some of the produce from the school that goes on to the and promoting. And then we go to the next side. We've got our hydroponic, growing a range of vegetables. And this is just another example of utilizing space in the most effective way. The next slide shows our work regarding beekeeping and emphasizing the importance of organic honey and various honey products which can boost the immune system. And so we've got a number of exciting projects. I wanted to add that even within the beekeeping, there is some very innovative technology that we will be introducing in ensuring pest management, yield, etc. And so the point I wanted to make is that technology is no longer a luxury, but an essential part of food systems. And it's a matter of introducing them in the appropriate way in communities. We're all aware that even in very poor communities, people still have smartphones, and we need to utilize smartphones together with connectivity. The next slide. So this is one of our projects at the university, showing our hydroponic, our aquaponic system of farming tilapia fish, and at the same time using the fish waste to actually grow the produce, which you can see on the right-hand side, some delicious and very healthy lettuce, but we are also growing a range of other vegetables in one particular system. So it's a nice example of promoting protein through the fish, using the fish waste to grow the vegetables, and at the same time, effective use of water and reuse of water in terms of water conservation. Next slide, please.
Michael, just one more minute, please.
Yes, okay. So this is the last slide, and I just wanted to show that on the left-hand side, we are also growing by about 3 weeks with high nutrient and high value in restaurants in terms of enterprise. And on the right side, it's an example of 2 of our students, work-integrated students. And so we are working with schools of agriculture who need to send their students to get on-the-ground experience in this wide range of food systems. So in summary, is that the exciting, innovative, appropriate food systems that can be applied in almost any setting, rural or urban, school,
It looks like we have, Michael, we're losing you again.
On balcony, and so my final sure that our food is. So yeah, I'll just conclude by thank you for including me, and I'm sorry about the poor interconnectivity. Thanks.
No problem at all, Michael, but I think that your last words here resonate tremendously with the China study, where it says isolating nutrients and trying to get benefits equal to those of whole foods reveals an ignorance of how nutrition works in the body. As time passes, I'm confident that we will continue to discover that relying on the use of isolated nutrient supplements to maintain health while consuming the usual Western diet is not only a waste of money, but also potentially dangerous. very, very impactful in terms of the last statement, that we possibly need to rethink what is it that we need in our diet and what makes the most sense for us to have. We were going to go into breakaway rooms, people, but we're hitting a very late time in the calendar. So I'm going to just go through some questions and then just talk through. So Michael, a question for you, if you can, where Andile asks, work needs to be done to bring up subsistence and smallholder farmers into the commercial space. And this can be done by creating marketplaces for them. What are your views on what are ways in which we can bring up the guy who is struggling to compete in the bigger market? And what are the ways in which technology can maybe support these people? Maybe Michael might not be hearing me because of connectivity. I don't know, Vainola, if you want to tackle that question.
Yeah, just repeat quickly for me, please.
So just to say that these small subsistence farmers, the guy who struggles to make it to market, where there are not much opportunities available for them, would you have any suggestions on what can be done so that if I'm growing some vegetables in my garden, I can actually bring it into a marketplace that's worth bringing it into, rather than just selling it to my local community to make a few rands? What would be the ways in which those people could be propped up or held up?
Yeah, this is where we need to complete the value chain. The food value chain is not well supported where it is building markets, and so in every town there is some space where there is informal spaces where the community can come and share their diverse products. But I think that's where the political will come in, and I think that we need to also brush up our activism. It seems that pleading to government and writing to government alone is not going to do the trick. And so we need to put much more pressure on our government and on businesses to include the local markets, but also the supermarkets. There need to be direct relationships. That part of the value chain must be closed up as well, where the supermarket, and they are starting to do it more and more, where they go to the direct local producers and buy the stuff from them, not going through a middle person. And I think that is some of the strategies that need to, and then marketing training to small scale farmers as well. And I think if we all stand for still for 2 years and put our attention on how to get food security and good nutrition going, like we did with the COVID-19, where we all zoom in on our health, then we will start to get these things right and to connect the dots, because it's really the missing dots. There are some beautiful pockets of people doing similar work as Prof. Michael in every province, but it's connecting the dots, is us not working together and not realizing that loop must be closed. And I think when we do that, there will be we will move into leaps and bounds to a more effective food security economy.
Well, thanks for that response, Vainola. There's a lot of commentary in the chat around how schools have taken on the project of school food gardens, and obviously Michael alluded to some of that work that has also happened. So in a way, how do you bring third space learning or outdoor learning, and it's not just learning through a curriculum, but also learning for life, and what are the ways learners can be empowered also with some of the new technologies, including hydroponics, tower gardens, and how to use mandala gardens, for example, for sustainable kind of gardening spaces in which one can really not only feed oneself, but also feed a community of people. So I think the schools have already started the project of supplementing learner diet, but also at the same time, they've also contributed to their local communities. What more do you think schools can do? And I don't know if Michael is able to take this question. Michael, what do you think schools can do more in order to enable the garden as a third learning space? I know you did mention something about the projects that you're working on, but is there anything else that you think schools can do to support that project? Okay, I think Michael has obviously got some connectivity issues. So Venola, it looks like it's on your shoulder at the moment.
Yes, but there are also brilliant people in the audience that we can ask. But I already said that we can have aftercare programs where it's not only about the agriculture, but we link it to the other realities of life of the learners. So while the parents are working, instead of them going for crime to do criminal activities, they can actually be kept busy and learn new skills. And so I think it's the methodology.
Hey, yo, Gine,
Can you hear me?
all right. You popping your shit, nigga. Hey, yo, Gine, can't get caught on replay. Spin his blocker with the knocker, niggas know how we play. And we spin with Trey, hey, we gon' spin the Trey. Niggas touching one of mine, we gon' spin the same day. And we get back.
Sorry about that, people.
Yes,
yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so I think, Venola, we're going to just sort of end the session with learnings. And the way in which we're choosing to do that this time is to put a Mentimeter link into the chat. So if people in the audience can link to that Mentimeter. And the question is very simple. From all that you've heard and engaged with today, what are the main learnings that you take away as a person? Please, people in the audience, just add your voice to that particular Mentimeter link. Mitesh, I don't know if you want to just put that Mentimeter link into the chat space so people can contribute before we leave. So guys, we have a Mentimeter link in there. If you click on the link, it allows you to just go into a space and just add your voice to, after hearing and engaging today, what are the main things that you take away from today's conversation? And then we can set up the Mentimeter space. So Mitesh, I think just project the Mentimeter so as people add in, we can just get a running commentary of what the overall learnings are.
Prof. Kat, can I just comment briefly on the school program?
Please go ahead, Michael. That's fine.
So I just wanted to say there are a few things that often food gardens at schools are set up without proper planning and full understanding of the water, energy, and human resource needs. And so, it's not. It should be undertaken in a well-structured, well-planned idea, even if it's a small garden, and with sustainability. A sustainability orientation from the beginning, because a lot of food gardens at schools fail. The second very important lesson that we've learned with food gardens at schools is that during the holidays, and particularly the December holidays, nobody looks after them, and they could be flourishing in November, and then there are exams, and then the holidays, and when you come back middle of December, middle of January, the food garden is just full of weeds and unproductive, and you start again. And so, there has to be a plan of how to address those particular issues. And then, because of teachers who've got an overwhelming workload, the food garden and the involvement of the students must be in such a way that the teachers are excited and feel that the food garden can add value to what they are teaching, instead of an additional topic or another activity as part of the school, or another task for which they have to be responsible. So those are just three of the many lessons, but they're very key in terms of ensuring that the school learners or the school governing board or the local community assist during the holiday time, that there is good planning and organization and clear thinking about what needs to be achieved. And then very importantly, being sensitive to the school curriculum and to the teachers and not to overload them. So I just wanted to raise those three things, and we've learned a lot of lessons, and would be happy to share with other participants in terms of the lessons that we've learned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And here we are with our Mentimeter exercise. And I mean, listen to the profound kind of statements that are coming out from what people have learned. I like the one that says food security is within reach. And that is, I think, the mandate. It is just, within our reach. It is there for us to be able to do. But if we can use some of the more innovative models, and Michael is offering an opportunity for people to connect, so that some of the more innovative techniques in which we can work with, growing our own produce, our own food, that can be broadly embraced and scaled up. Maybe we have a chance at it. But as Aziz and others were also alluding to, it begins with us. We've got to take initiative to get it going wherever we find ourselves. Then somebody else says to promote community that I'm working with on the importance of establishing food security gardens to further involve children to do lighter work from an early age. I think the idea of giving somebody a plate of food rather than teaching him or her how to generate or how to grow their own food, that's the different kind of dimension that we're speaking about here. And how do we work with children so that if anything at all, I mean, I know one school example is where there isn't enough space and every child's garden is a container, like an ice cream container, and they've got to learn within an ice cream container space what are the potentialities of growing things. So I think you're absolutely right. This is somebody working at an EC center, and this is where they want you to encourage parents, involving them and community, but at the same time, how does this impact education and what would be the ways? Somebody says, it appears that commercialization is a current issue that is unstoppable. Social responsibility of communities no more has a place in the whole scheme of things. Sad as not all children may be in school, especially those with disabilities. Yeah, I think that factor of children with disabilities is very rarely engaged with. And what would be the ways in which, so Michael, one of the things that might be something that we can take up as a thinking project is what would be the ways in children and people with disabilities, what are the ways in which they can be empowered and participate in some of this process making. So really lovely contribution there. I agree, commercialization. I mean, I went to Hoedspruit recently and people were saying, why are we doing citrus farming only? And there's an entire debate around lots of those things. Again, somebody says, I like the idea of nutritional education for both parents, children, and maybe society in the whole, in other words, food literate, and I'm using Vinola's words here, food literate society. How do we create a food literate society? And then somebody says diseases are a lifestyle cause and not always by choice. Absolutely right. If you have nothing to eat, you'll take whatever comes. But then what are the ways in which we can educate people what is useful for us to put into our bodies? So guys, a really wonderfully engaging session. We have 4 more minutes left. And really, honestly, that just leaves me to offer a huge thank you on all our behalf to Vinola, to Michael, and to Aziza, who took the time to be a part of our conversation today and who gave us some insight into what would be the ways all of us can play a role in adding to the food security need. Michael, I really love your ideas around some of the models that might be more appropriate, that relate a few things, and maybe those are some of the things that we can think about further. And the fact that the school can be the central point of education, not just for the curriculum, but also for the community in terms of how we can empower people around this issue of food security. So with that, I really want to say a huge thank you to all of you, as well as to the UJ Partner in Crime Kagiso Trust, who always comes to the party in terms of bringing together people and dialogue and conversation. As always, we leave you with one thought, and that is, as we always do in our dialogues, we don't have these dialogues so that the conversation happens and then we go back to same old, same old. Lots of people here are saying wherever they find themselves, they can make that one little difference. So wherever you are, in whatever space you find yourself, I would urge you to take the conversation further into your spaces, but also at the same time, if a garden can be a container, then so be it. But we all got to start somewhere, wherever we find ourselves. Good afternoon, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of the afternoon. And really, thank you so much for engaging with us and being a part of us. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you,
Bye.
Pat. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Aziza.
you. Bye.
Bye, Aziza. Bye.
Bye, Aziza.
Bye, Aziza.
Bye, Vanola.